What is up, my people? My name is Anton and welcome back to September. Today we're going to be taking a look at another sort of like material texture focused episode. We're going to be taking a look at making these like worn, really dirty decking type materials. I was taking a look at this reference where I kind of saw them and I was wondering how I could recreate them. And yeah, we're going to diving into Substance Painter a little bit, sort of like recreate the dirt and stuff. But generally we're going to be going from the modeling in Cinema 4D and then exporting out as FBX with a little bit of UV mapping. And ideally you can sort of fit this in scenes like this. It's not great for like super close-ups, although we can fix it up that way. And it kind of works quite well in reaction to light and stuff, and you get a pretty nice result. So without banging on anymore, let's try and recreate it. So my first step was creating the planks. And I knew I had two options here. I knew I could just get a regular sort of like cube and then get the planks in and work with the normals or like displacement for that. But I chose the other route, which was creating the actual planks themselves. The geometry is super low, so I didn't think it would impact the scene too much or anything as a preset. So we're just going to do those really quick. Literally, it didn't take me any time at all. Sort of extended them out like that, and before you know it, you basically got the planks. One thing to sort of bear in mind at this point is we are going to have to re-UV this so we can import this into Substance and fix it up. Not just for Substance specifically, but so we can texture full stop. And the longer you make this, the more it's going to sort of like stretch or like potentially pack strangely in the automatic UV packer, which we're going to use. So you're better off using something a little shorter, maybe like this just for now, depending on like what you're actually going for. Even if it is, you can sort of like duplicate it across, but for now we're going to go for something like this. And obviously now we want to think about sort of like outside of the texturing, little details. So you don't want the corners to be completely sharp because, well, firstly, they really very rarely ever are. So if you turn up the subdivisions, and then if we get a fillet radius of maybe 0.1, something super small, turn that up ever so slightly, 0.3 works pretty well. Now what you'll realize is if we put this in a cloner and then set this to linear, we can change the time here to, I believe, this top one. We want them to sit next to each other with a microscopic gap, and that fillet will allow us to just achieve that. So we're getting a really tiny gap here, but let's turn it up ever so slightly. We want to be able to see through it. Something like that is perfect. And you can see the fillet sort of contributes to that a little bit. So if we now turn this up, we can get 10. I say 10 works pretty well. And that is essentially the basis for our decking. If you want a little bit of variation here, depends how worn of a decking you're going for. What I did was I just clicked on the cloner and went and got myself a random effect really quick, and literally went to rotation, and just on the P rotation there, scale this up so they look a little wonky. We obviously do not want it that strong, so if you scale this down maybe to 50%, maybe we can go for something like that, just for more variation this time. This is where you want to go with your geometry. So if you want to bake this off, UV map it and get it into Substance now, what you can do is hit Alt-G. I'm going to probably just, right click and go Connect Objects and Delete. You can see we've got a UV tag there, so let's take a look at what that looks like. Not great. So if we delete that, head here to Paint, go Paint, Setup Wizard, which you click Next, Optical Cubic Mapping, make sure we're saying 4096 by 4096, click Finish. We can take a look at what we've got here so far. So that looks pretty good in terms of sizing, I'd say. Bear in mind this is obviously like 4K by 4K. This is covering half of it, so we're going to get some pretty good resolution in our textures, and we can kind of move forward from that. So we've got our texture UV now, and one way that I sort of went about sort of understanding the basics of this is the way we're going to work in Substance is by importing our wood materials, right? It's just a regular, clean, sort of like wooden texture, and then working to make that a little dirty and work on top of that, right? And I thought there was a particular asset that I had in mind. You can use any wooden textures. We're here from like any part of the internet, just clarifying that. But there was material from Grayscale Gorilla down here. I think it was like hickory unfinished, which I really wanted to go for. This one just here, sort of like dirty planks type thing. So if you drag that on, you can see that that material is going to get applied. It's going to generate it really quick. And we can see how this material sort of fits to our wood. So we can see straight away that it's rotated around the wrong way. So if we want to fix that, it should be pretty easy for us to head into UV edit here. Literally grab our UV, click the rotate tool, maybe the faces, Control A, and then we can, so let's make sure we're clicking the origin point, which is the center. We can do that. Ooh, rotate around somewhat like this. Little wonky this, but then if we grab the position tool, just move it in the middle there. There's definitely a more exact way of doing that, but this will do. I'm looking at the sides there, making sure it's straight. Something like that works pretty well. Not perfect, but then again, the planks aren't perfect. If we head to Octane again, we should be able to see that those planks should be pretty good. So this is what I was going for. I was kind of wanting to understand the scale a little bit, but that looks like it works fine. And then we've got some wooden planks that we can work off, right? So at this point, what you can do is if we delete the wooden hickory material real quick, click on the null, just take it back to object mode and then go File, Export, FBX. We can hit OK. And we can set our decking export. So I spelled that wrong, but that's fine. And now we've got our FBX exported, UV mapped, ready to texture. So we can do now is open up Substance Painter, and I'll show you how easy it is in Substance Painter to generate the dirt, sort of the best way you should go about doing it, and then how we can re-import that back to Octane and get the result. So let's take a look here. If we head back to where we exported, we can grab our decking, import that in, make sure we're selecting 4096, hit OK, and we've got our decking in here. You've got our UV map on the right and our actual geometry on the left, and this is where we can start. So what you want to do is import your baseline wood texture. If you head to File and then Import Resources, you can add your resources here from whatever location it is. I think I've got mine saved here, so I just went in C4D, located the texture specifically, and then Control C, pasted that in here. I grabbed all these. Oh, I have already done this, so I'm just going to show you how to do it. I went open and then selected all of them and set texture here, import your resources to library, your assets, and hit import. And once you've done that, it's just going to bring them up here. In fact, I made it one more time just so it brings them up here. Yep, it brings them up right here, and then you can start dragging them on your geometry. So because you've already rotated this in Cinema, it should be pretty easy to do. So if you literally grab this, put it on, hit base color, and then set this down here to UV projection, you can do these one by one to sort of get where you want. So this is height. You can set that to UV projection 2. We've got metallic here. Just make sure you're clicking these one by one. That's going to be our normal UV projection, and this is our roughness. Perfect. So we can pop that on, and now we've got that exact same wood texture exported into Substance. And what we can do is go about making this a little dirtier. So if, just for organization, we grab our textures here by hitting Shift and just Control G, that makes a little folder, and that's our wood texture in there. So now what we want to do is think about recreating this dirt. So if I head back to my texture reference rather, you can kind of see what you want. So for this specifically, the wood is almost like an underlayer. That you've got this kind of like plastic which sits on top, which I thought was pretty cool, and that's what I wanted to try and recreate, right? So this is a tip which I learned because I remember looking through the texture library, the substance library, and only looking at these regular materials here, and there are ones which are far better and far more detailed in the smart materials tab. So if you have substance, head in there, and you can start dragging some of these on to sort of like see which work. Ones which screamed out at me straight away were a load of really cool techniques with a edgeware painting down here, but these are obviously like steel painted like metal bits, which wouldn't really work too well. So if we Control Z that, I was almost going for like a rubber. I understood that it was paint, but rubber was the closest thing I could find here. So I think there was like Rubber Tire Dirty, which looked pretty cool, but not quite. It doesn't have any of the like rust generation which I wanted. There is a dedicated dirt node here, which works, but for some reason I don't think it likes overlaying on other textures too much because I couldn't see anything really. But what worked for me the best was this machinery node. So if you have that, drag that on. Okay, so I just forgot. If your textures aren't generating, you need to make sure that you head to mode up here, or rather edit, bake mesh maps. Make sure you set the output size to 4096 and click bake matte. That's going to let Substance sort of calculate, like you can see here, the UV's edges of your geometry, so we can sort of generate on top of that. Substance isn't just a texturing software, it sort of tends to analyze your geometry and like create some little cool bits as well that you can export, so bear that in mind. Otherwise your generation will not work if you start using these smart materials. So now hopefully we've got our wood here, but yeah, if we wanted to export on top of that, drag the machinery on, and we should see some more dirt being generated. So this, as you can kind of see from my reference, this is exactly what I was going for. Only thing is, obviously, it's yellow, which we kind of want to change to black. It seems to be far more yellow down here as well for some reason, but that's fine. We can take a look here. So I think it's kind of creating some variation between the planks, but that's fine. The underside isn't what we're looking at, so we can kind of focus on the top here. So you can see that luckily what happens is it creates a group, and you can sort of like pick down what you want and what you don't inside that group if it's a preset material, right? So what we're looking to sort of overlay is, yes, we've got that wood texture there, and that's what the dirt looks like on top of that wood, but we're not getting any of the black. So a pretty good opportunity to do that now is if we just re-enable this real quick. We can see that it's probably reflective enough, and it kind of gives off the look that we're after. We're getting some nice little different like tangents of dirt there. So what we can do is head to the base color down here and just make this a little darker. So let's make this pretty much black, I'd say. We can go for other colors, but this is black, so let's go for black. Very dark gray anyway. And what we can do is, it's not black everywhere, right? So we want to create some wear in this, and a cool way of doing this now is if we right click on the metal base, head to add black mask, and then right click, hit add generator, click on generator, and click dirt here. What that's going to do is create a dirt generator and plaster that over that black layer that we have. So what we want is this to be quite high. So you can see here, if you start tweaking these, you'll see some results. So if we tweak the contrast up a little bit, and then our dirt level down, or rather up, you can see that we're kind of dialing in that black how we want to. The grunge here specifically is quite small, so if you move this down, that should turn the scale of the grunge up a lot more. But it depends how much detail you want. I prefer having it quite low like this, maybe 1 or 2. And this is where you can sort of like work with it. So if you want only a little bit of black, you can sort of get that dialed in a little more like this. There are a few generators which work pretty well for this. This one is dirt, which is what I was going to show you. And this is, you got to think this is more like general cover almost. If you're really wanting to dirty something up, it works quite well with contrast. But ideally, if your like texture, your object still looks good with really low contrast, then dirt is probably a little more for you. I've always gravitated a little more towards a one called Metal Edgeware here, because it sort of holds around the edges a little more, kind of like what you see here. But if you click on that, even if it's not Metal Edgeware, I understand that, you can kind of see how this creeps in through the edges here, which I think is pretty cool. Specifically the sides here as well, you can kind of see that. So if we start messing around with these maybe a little bit, we can take some of this edge, and these are far more like scratchy, but we can see what we like here. We can always invert this as well. You just click invert here. It's going to turn it more like this, which also creates some pretty cool wear. And then we can just keep peeking at our reference, seeing how we want to vary this, and ultimately what kind of result we want to create. So I'm almost more inclined to go something a little more like this time. But if you wanted to have something which revealed the wood a little more, maybe something a bit more like this, probably works quite well for me. You can literally hit that invert and you're getting that result again. But I like the look of this, because obviously my thinking is if it's painted, the edge is going to be more worn, and therefore it's going to reveal the underlayer rather than the other way around, right? So that sort of seems to make a little more sense to me. If you like, you can also head to the base texture here, I believe, and you can start tweaking the roughness and stuff. So if you want this to be much more reflective, you can do that. You can each have the roughness set to 0, and that can be like super shiny, kind of like that, or any other parameters you particularly have in mind. But for me, I feel like this is getting pretty close to what I kind of want. I'm going to double check if I can make any more generators here, because I'm maybe able to add one more, so you can overlay them too here, just to create some more variation. Maybe if I turn the dirt level all the way up. Contrast. I want to add some dirt on top of that. Let's see how we can do that if we turn the scale all the way down. And getting some pretty cool. These aren't overlaying like I'd expect though. Okay, so this is gonna, I guess, is a good chance to kind of show you the difference between dirt and edgeware. If you're going for more dirt, it's like this. But I feel like the edgeware makes more sense functionally for me. And what I mean for that is if you're going for realism or like the little details, and you're imagining this is a floor which has been trampled on for years, really deteriorated. I feel like cleaner planks like this wouldn't be next to these ones unless something had happened. So kind of it looks more varied, but you know, in terms of like intricacies, I feel like I'd move towards the metal edgeware a little bit. So that's what I'm going to go for this session in particular. And if you are happy with that, what you can do is then head to File up here, and we're going to export our textures. Now, considering we imported in this scenario EXRs, which was super high quality, high bit, I'm tempted to sort of do that again just for working in 32-bit. It tends to make the textures look a little better in Octane. So what we can do is find where we want to export. So I'm just going to call this decking tutorial. I spent that wrong for the second time. If you hit select folder, we go output template, we can pick down here Arnold AR standard, size, maximum size for all texture set. So let's pick 8192 just so we've got the max quality. Padding we don't need as such. If we head to here, we can pick EXR. Make sure we're picking 32 bits, and we should be pretty good at this point. So we hit export now. It's going to export all our textures, and we can start plugging these in to Octane. Nice one. So that didn't take too long at all. It's just writing some bitmaps finalization. And those materials are exported. So now what you can do is hit open output directory, super little handy button there, and you've got all your textures here. So now we can close off Substance Painter. Save your file if you want to edit layer. For now, I'm just going to discard it because I don't need it. And we can head back in here and see what we can do with these textures we've just created. So let's hop in here real quick and just get ourselves material, create, we can get ourselves a universal material, and we can just plug that straight on our decking. No need to worry. Make sure we're setting this to aces and path tracing. And we can start putting these textures in. So we head to node editor, we can grab our node, make this full screen, why not? And we can grab our stuff. So these are all EXR files like you can see. So it should be pretty easy. Just select all 5, drag them in. Should work, no problem. I kind of prefer using the node editor in full screen now because I can actually move these around a little more. And we can pick what we want. So this is our base color. So straight away, let's set that back to aces. And plug these in one by one so we can kind of see what result we're getting. Getting some nice wear there. And then if we pick, this is our height map, so plug that into bump. That'll be our roughness. Switch that right in. Get our metallic, pop that there. And our normal map, which we can plug in here. And now you can sort of judge the look that you're going for. I am pretty happy with this. I think the metal edgeware was definitely the right decision. And you're starting to get some pretty cool worn planks there. Specifically, I really like the way it sort of reacts to the light. That was pretty cool to me. And it sits really nicely under the wooden texture. So what we can do now is get ourselves a HDRI to sort of like light this up a little bit and see what we've kind of created. We can head to Grayscale Gorilla, just get ourselves a HDRI, which we always use. Plug this in aces. And let's see what we can do here. So if we rotate this up a little bit, maybe we can get an angle where it really reflects on the light nicely. I'm thinking something like this. Just get yourself a quick camera. Set the focal length to 80. And this is the setup that I had before. Obviously, if you're using this in a scene, I'll plug it straight into your scene. And you're getting some pretty cool looking worn planks here. I'd say a few of the tips that I sort of like highlight from this video that really like are responsible for this look. At the end, definitely export as 8K. I've realized that far better than 4096, considering this is the way this is sort of like UV'd as well. Definitely helps. The generators are sick. Pick your wood material quite wisely, although this one in particular, the wood material is getting quite covered, so you don't have to worry about it too much, but that's obviously going to shine through quite a bit. So So what I'd say is, if you're having trouble where your wood texture looks really low quality, maybe you can create a mixed material and grab one of these sort of roughness channels or displacement ones, which are sort of more like thresholded black to white, and you can plug that in as the amount. And what it will do is it will sort of like blend a wood material like the hickory material we had here with the dirtier material, and it might be a better outcome for you, I'm not sure. But for now, I'd say this is pretty accurate to what I was going for. You can do a little bit of color correction inside of Octane, obviously, like we always do. If you wanted to sort of like brighten this up, you could just get yourself a color correction node, plug it in just under the albedo here, and start messing with the gamma. If you want this to be sort of like lighter planks, you can move it down. The world really is yours. These look pretty cool, almost as like dark planks, sort of takes the saturation away altogether. But in general, this is exactly what I was going for. So you can plug this in your scene, substitute this as your floors, whatever you kind of wanted to do. If you're just bored of planes or less tileable textures. So with that being said, thank you everybody for watching. I hope you learned something new today. Let me know if you actually enjoyed the Substance Painter content. I think it's really cool. Personally, I always struggle with texturing. I spent a long time faffing around the node editor before I realised that UVing wasn't that scary and you could achieve a lot of really cool results in Substance, and I sort of started to move towards it a little bit after that. But I understand, I used to look at videos and see Substance Painter in the title and think, no way. So let me know if you learned something new and if I'm sort of showing the benefits here. And with that being said, I'll see you very soon in the next video. So thank you everybody for watching.